Johnny Bench, Pete Rose, Mickey Mantle, Mike Schmidt, Willie Mays, Henry Aaron. Oh my gosh, this is so great. I love looking at these. But what in the world does baseball cards have to do with me quitting breeding leopard geckos? Well, watch this video and you're going to find out. And I tell you what, this is going to go negative real quick. So any die-hard leopard gecko breeders out there, you might want to stop watching right now. But then again, you might want to hold on till the end, because you know I can't leave things negative. I have to be positive. Baseball card collection. Well, this is the only collection that I have right now other than geckos. But years ago, as a kid, I started collecting coins. And I loved the wheat pennies. I used to go to the cashier at our cafeteria, school cafeteria, and look through all the coins and exchange a penny for a wheat penny or a dime for a silver dime. But that's about 150 years ago. And then in my early teens, I started collecting beer cans. I don't know how many I had, probably about 250 to 300, but they were all flat tops and cone tops. Really, really cool old can. And then in my late 20s and early 30s, I started collecting tropical fish. Well, I wasn't really collecting them. I was keeping them and breeding them. I think we had 125 different tanks, up to 125 gallons with discus and Lake Tanganyikan and cichlids and live bears and killifish. That was a lot of fun, and that hobby lasted about 12 to 15 years, but that was a long time ago. But it might be coming back. And then we moved, and I got into orchids, and I had hundreds and hundreds of orchids downstairs. I had a greenhouse downstairs. It was really cool, beautiful orchids. Now, if somebody walked by and took a look at the electric meter outside, they'd probably think that I was growing something other than orchids. So did you have a hobby when you were younger? Do you still have that hobby now? Do you have a different hobby? Let me know in a comment below. But the constant over all of these years has been my love for baseball and collecting baseball cards. As a kid, I would tag along with my mom to rummage sales, and I would buy tins of baseball cards, just stuffed with baseball cards. Then in my 20s and 30s, I started collecting baseball cards because I had disposable income, and that was dangerous. But now that I'm older, I go to the cupboards and I look through my books and I look through my cards and my sets, and that's satisfying enough for me. Okay, so how is all of this related to quitting breeding leopard geckos? I'm getting there. Bear with me. So in the 80s, there were only really 3 baseball card sets. Topps, of course, Donruss, and Fleer. And nobody really collected Donruss or Fleer. I used to go to card shows and collect sets and cards, looking for specific cards to fill out my sets. It was just a bunch of fun. But in 1989, that all changed. A new set came on the scene, Upper Deck. And the reason that changed everything is because they included Ken Griffey Jr. in their set, and everybody wanted Ken Griffey Jr.'s rookie card. Okay, stay with me, Gecko fans, because it's coming, this relationship. So with the success of the 1989 Upper Deck set, other sets started appearing, like Score and Pinnacle and Bowman. In the mid-90s, there were probably about a dozen sets. It was getting a little bit confusing. And then by the late 90s, there were 100 different baseball sets. I enjoy collecting the cards, I enjoy collecting the sets, but 100 baseball card sets, who can keep up with that? It was just too much, too much. It was hard enough keeping track of the 3 or 4 different sets that I did in all the players, but 100 sets, I mean, come on, that was just too much. Enough is enough. I quit collecting baseball cards. Okay, are you a non-baseball card collector? Do you not even care about sports at all, and you haven't been listening to this? Well, you can start listening again. About 5 years ago, I completely quit breeding leopard geckos. Well, I breed 2 or 3 different groups, but that's it. Before that, I had 2 different racks full of breeding groups of leopard geckos. I was breeding up to 300 to 400 baby leopard geckos in 1 year. So why did I stop? Was it too much management time? No. Could I not sell the leopard geckos? No, we could sell everything that we produced. When I started 20 years ago, it was a lot of fun. I started with the Super Hypo Tangerine Caratail pair, and I added a few pairs like that. But then it got fun with a couple of additional morphs being introduced into the hobby, like raptors, like the Super Snow, like the reverse stripe, like the red stripe. It was just a bunch of fun. Hey leopard gecko breeders, do you remember the bold stripes and the reverse stripes and the giants, those huge leopard geckos? That was a lot of excitement in the hobby and it was fun, but it was only a handful of morphs. But then over the years, we started seeing other morphs being introduced into the leopard gecko hobby. Marble eyes and pastels and white and yellows and lavenders and all kinds of different combinations. It was like baseball all over again. Just too much to try to handle all of the different combinations and then making sure that your leopard gecko was a pure breed and had exactly the hets and everything, all the different morphs in it that it was really sold as. So this was reason number one I quit breeding leopard geckos, out of two different reasons. And I'll talk about the second one in just a minute. So during that time, back in 2004, we saw the Max Snow. Raptors came on the scene, Aptors came on the scene. Great leopard gecko morphs. We also had the Super Hypo Tangerines, the albinos, the rainwater bell, trempers. We saw the giants, the bold stripes, the blizzards, the jungles, the high yellows, the black knights, black pearls. We started seeing new morphs like Diablo Blanco, the Enigmas, the Lemon Frost, white and yellow, Eclipse, blazing blizzards, patternless, dreamsicles, reverse stripes, red stripes, the Bloods, the Gem Snows, Marble Eyes, Snake Eyes, Hibino, Sun Globe, Banana Blizzard, Novas, Lavenders, Blue Amber Eyes, Bandits, Pastels, Typhoons, Cyclones, Platinums, Rainbows. Hey, am I missing any in here? And more importantly, in my mind, none of these new morphs changed the hobby.
And now for something completely different.
I really wanted to see something different. I really wanted to see a completely different leopard gecko at that time. Maybe a pure black that would stay black from beginning to the end, from baby to adult. I wanted to see a pure white animal. I wanted to see a pure white with an orange tail. I wanted to see a black animal with an orange tail or a red tail. I wanted to see something during that time completely different. I know I'm dreaming, but that's a game changer. That would change the leopard gecko community a lot. So again, stick around until the end because you know I'm not a doom and gloom kind of person. I'm a positive person. We'll see some positive, hopefully, at the end of this video. So again, with all of these different morphs and nothing being really a game changer in my mind, it was just like the baseball scene all over again. Too much, too many, too confusing. I quit breeding leopard geckos. Game changers. Okay, I'll give you this. Enigma was a game changer. I tell you, when Enigma came on the scene, they were selling for $2,000 a piece. I had to have one. Everybody had to have one. I went out and got a male for about $500. I was thrilled. I was producing my first Enigmas. Everybody had to have one, or 5, or 10, or more. Game changer for sure. White and yellow. Now I know the white and yellow leopard gecko breeder fans out there are just screaming at their phones or their computer screens saying, hey, that was a game changer. Okay, in my mind, it really wasn't. I'm not a huge fan of the white and yellow, but that's for personal reasons and that's to the side. So we'll talk about that later. So that was the first reason. I mentioned there were two. The second reason was, and here we go, we're going to dive into the dark depths of leopard gecko breeding. So let's talk about the famous or infamous Enigma leopard gecko. We'll follow that up with a little discussion on the white and yellow, the Super Snows, and finally the Lemon Frost. Okay, the Enigma morph was a huge game changer. Introduced back in 2006, it made the leopard geckos appear brighter. The reds were redder. The whites were whiter. The snozzberries tasted like snozzberry. Sorry, I got kind of lost there. Until we started seeing signs of the Enigma Syndrome. And that was pretty serious. I'm not going to get too much into the details, but the Enigma Syndrome causes the animal to have a neurological problem where they stargaze, they look up in the sky, they tilt their heads, they spin around in circles, all kinds of neurological problems. I've got a couple of links down in the description that you can check out from some great sources, a couple of great videos. Take a look at those if you want to know more about the Enigma Syndrome. Then we saw the white and yellows, and again, they brought more color to the leopard geckos. The whites were wider, the yellows really stood out. Just beautiful, beautiful animals. These were created by Geckos Unlimited back in 1996, first introduced to the hobby around 2002, and it brought a lot of excitement to the hobby again. But then again, we started seeing signs of the same kind of problems that we saw with the Enigmas. The spinning, the same neurological problem. This brought a lot of confusion to the hobby. It just wasn't determined if that syndrome could be bred out of the animals. We knew that the Enigma Syndrome couldn't be bred out of Enigmas, but we weren't sure with the white and yellow. You really have to go to Gecko Boa's site and take a look at their information. Gecko Boa's John Scarsborough has proven out that you can get rid of that syndrome from white and yellow and make it a good gene again. But again, what I'm saying is there's a lot of confusion in the hobby, and that just adds fuel to the fire. And how about super snows? We started hearing some issues with super snows, the same kind of issues. We're not sure if that's a gene kind of issue, if it's just the genes deteriorating over being inbred so much. We're just not sure. It seems like it's a lineage kind of issue, but we're not sure. And then there's the lemon frost. When lemon frosts were brought into the hobby a few years ago, they were a rage. I think one sold for $10,000, one of the first ones introduced to the hobby. Beautiful animals. Again, the yellows came out, the whites came out. Just an absolutely gorgeous animal. But then as people bred them more and more, they found out that the gene, the lemon frost gene, when bred together, caused tumors in the animals. Now, to be completely honest, I'm not sure if that has been determined, if that can be bred out of the animals or not. I do see lemon frost being sold on Morph Market. I'm hoping that those are pure animals and they don't have issues. I'm hoping, but again, it just adds confusion to the hobby. It's all so confusing with these different morphs. And how about new morphs? I don't know. Are they going to have problems? Are they okay? We just don't know. It's just so confusing. So here's the positive slant to this whole discussion. I'm a positive person. I do have hope, and I am inspired by some of the leopard gecko morphs that are coming out. I've been getting back into looking at leopard gecko morphs more and more over the last few months, and I'm seeing some phenomenal animals. They're just absolutely beautiful, and the good thing is that these morphs are coming out from very, very responsible breeders. These breeders are taking a lot of time to work with their animals. They're keeping them very healthy. They're keeping records. They're testing out all the genetics. And when I say testing out genetics, what I'm talking about is they're going back years and years. I do know of one case where the het was proved out for 7 years trying to get the exact het that the breeder was looking for. These breeders are proving out their morphs, and they're coming up with some new colors that are just dynamic. These breeders are doing it the right way. They're not selling their animals if they have any questions whatsoever about those animals. They're making sure that the hobby comes first and the dollars come after. After seeing some of these amazing animals, I might get into leopard gecko breeding again. Now, will I ever have 2 full racks of breeding leopard geckos? That's not going to happen. Will I ever produce 300, 400, 500 leopard geckos again? That's just not going to happen. I have other interests in the hobby, and leopard geckos just doesn't rank at the top of that priority. I love leopard geckos, but I'm just not going to have 20 or 30 or 40 different pairs or groups of leopard geckos breeding in the Supreme Gecko facility. But best of all, we're seeing the hobby take a full right turn with breeding leopard geckos. It's being done the right way. It's being done by very, very responsible breeders. And hats off to those breeders. And who knows? Maybe we'll see a skunk leopard gecko someday. Maybe? Thank you, gecko fans, for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, hit notifications all so you don't miss another one of these videos. Thanks again for watching. Again, the Enigma Morph was a game changer. Introduced back in 2006, it made the geckos appear brighter. They were just beautiful. The reds were redder, the whites were whiter, the snossages, come on. Snossages.